I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're over us? Yeah, who you gonna be?
Today's guest is Callie Dee, also known as the hip-hop soccer mom. She wears many hats. She's promoted hip-hop shows, including Master of the Mic, for over 5 years. She also produces 4 podcasts, including the one she hosts, The Smitten Kitten. She works with the Backwoods record label out of New York City, and she's very involved in the Deep Ellum Community Center. She was also my first regular photo client, and is also the person who reached out to me to offer me a time slot on Deep Ellum Radio, so you can thank her for this podcast even existing. I hope you enjoy my chat with Callie Dee. We are here with Callie Dee, the hip-hop soccer mom.
Hello.
Many other things: promoter, podcaster, producer, open mic. Like the list goes on.
I know. I wear many hats.
Yes.
When people ask me what is it that I actually do, because I guess it's not obvious. My first response is, "How long do you have?" You know what I mean? And that definitely changes depending on what type of year or what time of year and I guess my interest at the moment.
Sure. Well, the answer for that question would be less than an hour, because that's our time slot. I'm just teasing. Well, let's start with the basics. You're Texan.
Yes.
Fort Worth or where?
Correct. I was born in Fort Worth.
Okay.
I spent most of my life there.
Okay. And I mean, let's just skip ahead to what was it that made you go, okay, music is something to me that seems more special than other people?
So I've always had an affinity for music. I always listened to the radio. I was one of those people who would like record music on my boombox, to play later. I was in choir. A lot of times in my life, 6th grade, we were able to go join the choir at the Methodist. They bussed us over there and that type of stuff. Was in choir once I hit middle school, and then in high school. And through choir, I actually got to sing in Carnegie Hall when I was 15. We sang Mozart's Requiem, which is a pretty extensive, it's an hour-long piece. And one of the best pieces of music out there in terms of classical music. And so that was a really great experience, and really enjoyed being able to do that. Then I was also in drill team, or I did dance a lot throughout my life. So, music is a big part of that. So knowing like beats and rhythm and 8 counts and being able to do choreography to it. So it's always kind of been like a huge part of me, just on just the basis of my life. But when you think of, once you're in high school and you start thinking of college, I guess a career in music isn't really something, because I can sing with the choir, but I can't really sing solo. Like I was just good enough. I would make alternate at the regional UIL stuff. So I was just good enough, but not quite there. Right. And the same thing for dancing even, I was just good enough, but not like enough to be, I guess, just pursue a career in it, if you will. So I never really thought that I could have a career in music. I thought it was just always going to be a passion of mine, outside of being able to make money. But when I was 30, I had just had 2 babies back to back. And I had just left my ex-husband. By that time, I was a stay-at-home mom, and, not really wanting to get back into corporate America, because they kind of put a bad taste in my mouth when I was pregnant with my daughter, as far as, the stress of thinking of how I'm going to be able to not only be in the workforce, but also be a mother. They were just asking me if I had daycare scheduled when I was like 4 months pregnant. Like, you know, I still have some time to work on this, but like super pressure, you know? And then so it made me realize that once my baby was born, that they weren't going to be very empathetic to the fact that, you know, I have this newborn and need to be a mother. They were more concerned on, you know, me being on time and working for them. And they weren't really paying me all that great to give up, you know, a big portion of my children's lives. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 3 years at this point. And, you know, anybody who's taken a gap in their career knows that when you go and interview, they want to know why you haven't worked for the last 3 years. And then if I have to tell them that I'm a mom, then that makes it even, you know, more difficult. So because they probably would prefer somebody that, you know, didn't have other obligations other than work, because that's the kind of capitalist society we live in. So I had gone to my brother's open mic and just saw what a amazing artistic community I actually lived in and hadn't ever really noticed because I'd been busy working and being a mother. And I just fell in love. And so at some point I decided, you know, what else do I have to lose? I mean, I don't really have anything going for me now. So why don't I just try to see what I can do in this industry? So I started out as a promoter and just putting together shows.
So wait, this is all like in your 30s you started doing all this?
It was on my 30th birthday that I went to my brother's open mic and actually saw Leon Bridges perform at the open mic. You know, it was in at a place called The Warehouse in Fort Worth, which was just a DIY type place. Leon at that time, he went by the title Lost Child, or, you know, his proper name is Michael Todd Bridges. And he sang the song Lisa Sawyer, which was about his mom, and it gave me goosebumps. And like literally there was like 5 people there. And I was sitting on this like dirty couch they probably got off the curb somewhere, and just fell in love, you know. And from that moment on, I was like, you know, I've got to do something, you know, like I hadn't felt so inspired and alive in a while, right? So I started writing poetry to begin with, like you know, my creative juices started kind of flowing again. And through my brother, Tommy Luke's open mic, I met a whole lot of creatives, a lot of bands that were just starting out. I got to, you know, see a lot of national bands that came through at the Warehouse through some of their other programming. And I just, you know, took a stab at putting together my own shows. And through meeting some of these people, I was able to get in contact with Jamie and Aaron. Jamie just got remarried, but at the time she was Jamie Knight. And they had Black Box Entertainment, I think is what it was called, and then to be Ghostlight. And they kind of took me under their wing. Through them, I was able to send out my first offer letters to national acts and just really kind of understand the business part of producing shows. Because, you know, on the outside, you think, I throw good parties. Like, you know, how hard can this be? I just put a couple of good bands and I'm fun and people like to come to my parties. But yeah, it's so much more difficult than that. It's not like having a house party, you know, at all, because you have to charge admission and make people care. And so they were really integral in it. And then I linked with Mark McCullough, who goes by Def One, and DJ Techniques. And we put on a couple of more DJ kind of hip hop type stuff, and through a lot of trial and error, you know, because my first one was quite successful, but it was a charity that I did. It was a mustache party, and we had like a beard or mustache and beard contests and all sorts of stuff. But people tend to be okay with paying for charities. So my first one was successful in that. And then the next kind of string of them, not so much. And I'm just that type of person that, like, I don't take failure very well. Like, I want to succeed. So it's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to try to keep doing it until I figure it out. And that's kind of what happened. And then in all of that, I've just, you know, you have like a certain idea of what your life looks like with this passion, or what goal you're going for. And I feel like a lot of times you have to stay flexible in that, because, you know, where I'm at now, I probably never would have thought of back then. But through the course of time and with the opportunities that I've been given and just the knowledge that I've learned, I've just kind of fell into this place where, you know, I work with a a very successful independent hip hop label, and I'm doing radio, in that, like John Rohde, who was he's actually in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, but he was a radio DJ in Dallas, like in the 70s, 80s, something like that. He had a internet radio station, like at the dawn of internet radio station, called the Southside Pirate, that only played local music, so DFW based music. And he saw something in me and suggested I first started doing like a weekend wrap up for them, where I just talked about, local events going on, and they would play it, throughout their programming. And then that turned into me having, my first radio show with them, which was called the Sunday Soup, where I interviewed people, kind of a hip hop type thing. And then that evolved into a lot of different things, you know what I mean? And so that kind of helped start me on the radio podcasting journey that I've been on. But yeah, throughout, I've done things like, hosted events like on stage. I've been a stage manager, where I just make sure the event runs smoothly. I've managed people's careers as far as artists and musical performers. I've been on the radio. I've done podcasting.
So let me interrupt for a second. So you're like, first of all, tell me about maybe the first big live show, like the first National Act live show that you booked, like where you were like, wow, I made it to the next level of this promotion stuff.
Let me think. I guess that would have been Freestyle Fellowship. Oh, no. My first national show was Razzcast and Copyright at Lola's. And I think that was in 2014, beginning of 2014. And it went really well. I didn't lose money. And a lot of people came out to support me. People that usually, so Dallas and Fort Worth are kind of, funny in that people from Fort Worth, like, kind of talk crap and don't necessarily want to drive to Dallas. And then people in Dallas kind of talk crap and don't necessarily want to drive to Fort Worth. And then you got Denton in there too, which, kind of has the same dynamic, not with the talking crap. People in Denton have no other choice but to go to Fort Worth and Dallas. But to get people from Fort Worth or Dallas to go to Denton, that's another thing.
Yeah.
So I really concentrated on knowing that I have these three cities that are so close together with their own musical scene and a lot of like really great musicians that come from each city. What I would try to do is in programming my show, I would put artists from each city in there. And then that way you get other people that like them or support them to maybe leave their city to come to Fort Worth to see them or whatever city I'm in. And so I really kind of put that together in my, I guess, planning. And so that one was a really great show. I think, my lineup was super solid. And I think that definitely solidified me as somebody that knows music because I had a great lineup and I had people that I think I had a live painter there. I'm pretty sure I got some like break dancers. Because the thing with hip hop is a lot of times when you think of hip hop, you only think of one element, which is the rapping part of it. But hip hop actually started with four elements, which is the rapper MC, you have the DJ, you have the break dancer, and then you have graffiti. And so when I wanted to pay homage to the culture of hip hop in most of my shows, I really try to have something of each element represented in my show. And again, you're talking about four different communities within the hip hop community, because a lot of times the MCs only hang out with MCs, the DJs only hang out with DJs, and so you have these like kind of divided facets of hip hop that when you bring them all together, then that means, you have more people show up. And that was definitely something that I had to kind of plan or, strategize with. You don't want to pull three bands from the same crowd because then you have the same 30 people that go to their shows, so you really want to, see where there's like a different demographic that you can bring together to make, a more successful show. And so I implemented that in the Razzcast and Copyright show. And, I ended up making a really great friend out of Razzcast, who I think at that point was just restarting his career after some personal things.
Is this kind of how you got to know all these people in the hip hop world.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's all this is all promotion at this point. I mean, a little bit of the radio, but mostly.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I had quite delved into the radio portion of this just yet.
Okay.
So yeah, Rascass and I ended up becoming really great friends. And he definitely was instrumental in, some of the relationships that I also got after that. And now he's just like, I've seen him go from like a kind of a starting again position to now being the artist that, he always has been, and has struggled to try to make everybody else understand. Right. He's always been, one of the greatest, but I think there was just some personal issues, and record labels can make and break you sometimes, and I think that's kind of what happened with him.
Probably. How did Masters of the Mic get started?
So I was putting on open mics, and I did an open mic in Fort Worth. It was like the first Wednesday of the month, and then I had an open mic in Dallas at the Boiler Room, which now is Punk Society. And I can't remember what day of the week. I think it was also on a Wednesday, but it was like the third Wednesday of the month. And in doing that, I had a DJ who, after people would perform, would kind of give them some like critique, whether good or bad, you know what I mean, on the mic. And I thought, wow, that's a really great idea to have people perform and then have people who actually, know something judge them, as a form of like constructive criticism, though, obviously.
Right.
And so I think at the time the basketball playoffs were happening where they had like a bracket system. And actually I was on my way to a meeting regarding the Southside Pirate for whatever reason. And it just it hit me like, this idea. And I showed up to this meeting that, I probably should have paid attention to, but instead I was like writing like how to, because what I was thinking with this basketball playoff situation was, okay, we have 3 cities here that all have really great entertainers, and everybody's always like, oh well, Dallas has the best rappers, Fort Worth has the best rappers, Denton has the best rappers, and I thought, in hip hop being such a competitive thing anyway, it would be really cool to kind of like pit the cities against each other almost. So have like a round of competitions in, Dallas, to where they have like 1 or 2 people, and then, Denton 1 or 2, and then break that down until you have 6 performers that face off to claim the title of Master of the Mic. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And I pitched the idea, and this was still very early in my career. And for whatever reason, there were a lot of people who believed in me. And, I also had people who didn't, but I'm still kind of, thinking back on it, like amazed at how many people put their faith in me, which is, thank all of you people. But so I started this idea, and I didn't even really know how I wanted it to end. Like we were thinking, so for the first few rounds, I would have people like, writers at the Observer, or people who have like been in the industry but maybe aren't anymore, producers, just people, that have a respected opinion, and also who couldn't be swayed, because I didn't want anybody to think that, I had any kind of push in who wins, like that I was totally unbiased. So I definitely put people in those positions that, obviously that would not be like, I couldn't buy them off, Right. And I remember, and I actually was talking to Alsace about this the other day, around that time, Erykah Badu was starting to do some stuff again. I think she was also kind of in like a dip in her career. Like, she's always been amazing, but I feel like at times she's been bigger than others. And this was kind of one of those times where maybe she had a lull a little bit. And the DOC as well, he was still in LA. But I had found out that the DOC actually had a baby with Erykah Badu. And so I had it in my head that it would be really cool if I could get the DOC and Erykah Badu to judge the finale, at the end of the year, because, it was going to be a process. And I told Alsace, because she was... on the fence on whether she wanted to be in the competition or not. And I really thought that, she would be a great competitor, and I wanted her to be in it. And we're also friends. So like in one of those moments of us talking about it, I was like, I'd really like to get the DOC and Erykah Badu to like judge the finale. And she didn't laugh at me or act like, that was unattainable. And I think even some of the publications might have like mentioned that was something that we were interested in doing. And, it took a lot. First of all, for Erykah Badu to say yes, I had to go through her right-hand man, Cold Chris, and he had been a judge at one of my competitions, and he really saw the value in what I was doing. And so he was a very big supporter in getting, Erykah. And then through Chris, I talked to her lawyer and kind of gatekeeper, and he also, really respected my idea and thought that it was something that was viable. So that kind of gave me that, affirmation. But, she still didn't quite say yes. And then also at this time, the DOC was coming back to Dallas. Like he was in LA for a long time, living with Dr. Dre. And there was a transition where he actually, we had like this big homecoming thing for him. And I didn't know this at the beginning of the year whenever I had, thought about it. But I did have connections to DOC through some people. So I knew that, I could at least get in touch with him if I thought that I could offer something. And so I didn't get Erykah and I didn't get DOC quite. So I had to have somebody. And I was presented with Duro. So I ended up getting, kind of just as a backup plan, getting Duro, who is also, a big artist from Dallas who's done some stuff. And after I got Duro, then Erykah decided like she would join. And then right after that, DOC, it was like in the bag that DOC would do it. So at first I was going to have 2, big time judges, and it turned into 3, but it really turned into something beautiful. Like it was a really great process. And and I really think that the master of the mic is what made me. At that point, people couldn't deny that I, was doing something. Yeah. And I saw a lot of growth and a lot of interest in hiring me and actually making money. Cause, at first you have to put out a lot of money and you lose a lot of money. You're taking a lot of chances. It's like gambling, you can't really foresee how a show is going to turn out. You could have like the best everything and and then a huge competing show happens, or the weather, or just whatever. There's just so many things that could happen.
One time where at Artco, like one of those metallic balloons hit a cable, all the power went out.
Oh shoot.
Show over.
Yeah, exactly. So
you never know.
It's definitely a crapshoot every time.
Yeah, but that was successful, and that went on for a while. I mean, you basically, that's still kind of in the ether, or? Yeah, in doing 4 or 5 years of it, I think we did 5 years of Master of the Mic. Our artists are really sensitive people. And so, after having to, winners, you have to also have, quote unquote losers. And they don't handle that very well. So as the years went on, I saw less and less interest of people wanting to take that chance. And then you have the people who like swear to the fact that like I rig it, which whatever, they can think what they want. Like, I think anybody that's been closely involved knows that I don't have any influence on who makes it and who doesn't. And, so, it got to be a little bit more of a struggle just to get people to compete and for it to be something that was interesting. Sure. So I had a plan to take it national, and I talked to, some national sponsors and Head Crack, who is from Dallas and has always been just like a big brother to me in the hip hop industry. He's in Atlanta now, and he's on a couple of really big radio shows. He was on Ricky Smiley and Dish Nation, and has a lot of like those kind of connections. He was able to present the idea to somebody who could possibly sponsor something pretty big, and they were quite interested in it. It's just one of those things that a lot of times in things like this,
people don't like other people's ideas. If they didn't think about it, then it's automatically a no from the start. So, you know, I felt a lot of resistance, I feel like. And it's not necessarily an original idea. I mean, there's American Idol, you know, there's things like this already that's happening on a national level. But I thought it would be really cool just to, you know, maybe do something like New York, Atlanta, you know, DFW, LA, maybe something in the Midwest, because those are some pretty big hip hop centers, and then have the competition happen that way, and then you know, be able to have like a national competition happen kind of the same way that I did the 3 cities. But you know, that takes a lot of money and a lot of time, and I am a single mom and I have to make a living. So without you know, some kind of corporate sponsor or, you know, something like that, then it's a little bit harder to make happen. But you know, if ever the day comes, I definitely have people in those regions like ready to help me facilitate it. So it's not necessarily off the board, but
Right. So if you're a major sponsor
Yeah.
out there, hear this, you want to keep this going. It was cool. I liked it. I think it's a good idea. And the fact that, yeah, there's American Idol, but I don't know that there's a national hip hop specific
yeah,
program. So
not one that isn't like a pay to play type thing.
Right.
You can do stuff like that, but usually you have to pay to be able to perform. And I see those all the time where, you know, pay $1,000 and you can maybe win 10 or something, and they all tend to be a scam.
Sure. Well, so then, okay, so you pivoted from that. You kind of started working down in Deep Ellum, right? Mm-hmm. You were doing, what were you doing down there?
So, you know, Deep Ellum is just kind of been this musical hub. So really just down there being part of the community. It's definitely a place where a bunch of artistic types, you know, congregate. And so this industry is a lot about building relationships. And so a lot of the legwork that I've done over the years is just, you know, developing those relationships. But I would do things, you know, I was a bartender in Deep Ellum for a little bit, but also I would host shows. I would throw shows there. I've done a couple of shows at Club Dada. I've done a couple at RBC, a few at Ruins, and I think that's it in Deep Ellum.
Right. But then now you're involved with Deep Ellum Radio, Deep Ellum Community Center.
Right. So the Deep Ellum Radio happened a year or two ago. I put my podcast that originally started on The Pirate with John Rohde and Sally Rohde when they had an FM, because they actually were able to get the FCC license to have a low-level FM. So my radio show was there through them. But because of Corona, you know, a lot of people stopped doing, I mean, they had like an actual studio where people could come in and record. Well, obviously, you know, with Corona, we couldn't be doing that kind of stuff. And so they ended up, you know, not being able to sustain the radio station. So I had this idea of the Smitten Kitten, which is a radio show / podcast about sex, love, dating, and relationships. And I didn't really have a home for it. So I had been doing it like on podcasts or Facebook Live. And Deep Ellum Radio were looking for some more programming, and I was able to get in with them and air the Smitten Kitten through them. And so that's how I got involved with them. And then I got, you know, more involved in the programming and things like that. So that was, you know, that also furthered my interest in radio broadcasting. And through that, I decided just to go ahead and go to school to get my radio and television broadcasting degree, which I'm currently enrolled and hopefully will graduate by the end of next year. You know, again, I'm a single mom and I work too. So some of these
Right.
goals, you know, take a while,
You
a lot longer than, you know, I would hope. But
yeah, you're pretty stacked. I mean, you're always busy doing something. And I also
am.
see you always with the kids. So it's like you're
Yeah.
a good mom.
Thank you.
So you got the podcast. What else you have coming up in the future?
Well, and then because of Deep Ellum Radio, I also, because Deep Ellum Radio is housed within the community center, I ended up meeting some of the people involved in that. And because I have an accounting background, a lot of times it's kind of weird that my accounting background has actually been like the foot in the door for some things. So now I do the accounting for the Deep Ellum Community Center. And in that, I'm also able to be a part of a lot of the things they have going on there, which currently we're planning the Deep Ellum Community Arts Festival, which I'm the director of entertainment. And then I'm also in charge of financials, again, because, you know, I do their books anyway. But also the accounting got me a foot in the door with Backwoods Studios, which is an independent hip hop label. Technically, Backwoods is in New York because that's where our artist and our studios are. And like the main artist and also the founder and I guess president of Backwoods Studios lives in Brooklyn. However, Anton Schlesinger, which he's kind of another one of those behind the scene badasses that like has just made so many awesome things happen. Like to name them all, I would probably forget and it'd be way too long. But we had some dealings in the past through, you know, different things. And I saw him out one night and, you know, he looked run down a little bit, like just exhausted. And I was like, and I've been telling him forever, like, Anton, I want to do what you do. Because he has his hands in a little bit of everything. He's kind of like me, you know. And, you know, I hit him at the right moment. He knew I had an accounting background and doing the accounting for Backwoods or helping with that, you know, was something that he saw value in. And then that turned into me being his assistant and to me like helping him run like the logistics of the radio, or not the radio, the record label, like shipping and fulfillment and, you know, customer service and a lot of that kind of stuff, website stuff. And so, but our office is also located in Deep Ellum. So through all of this, like, even though I live in Fort Worth, I very much have, I should live in Deep Ellum. I wish I could, but, you know, it just doesn't make sense for my kids. So yeah, that's
Wow.
my involvement with Deep Ellum, I guess.
That's a
To
lot.
answer that question. I know it's like,
it's funny. It's like, I think, are you the first podcast host I've had on? I feel like I'm just, you know, like putting a little recorder and dropping it and letting you go.
for sure. Especially when you know, the questions are so diverse. I mean, it's just, I'm kind of like one of those like brain maps, you know, it's like one thing and then it like spawns out. And that's kind of,
no,
you
I
know,
see that.
yeah, that's,
That's funny.
that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I mean, besides doing the podcast yourself, they're starting to producing some as well.
Yes. So I learned how to record over COVID, mostly to be able to put on the virtual version of Master of the Mic. You know, we did it online, the quarantine edition. And so in doing that, I learned like how to make sound good in like a you know, live session, which basically is the same thing for recording as well. And through a lot of trial and error, you know, got good at it. And so in that, and then also being involved in the programming of Deep Ellum Radio, I knew that there were people who had talent but might not just know how to like do the technical stuff of it. And I would reach out to them and I'm like, hey, I think you would make a really great show. Have you ever thought about it? And, you know, of course, I mean, you were one of the people that I reached out to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep, you can thank Callie for this podcast. It was bouncing around my head, and then actually no. At first, I was going to do like a music hosting.
Yeah,
and that's not me. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, so this is a very good example of that. Of course, you know, you have the wherewithal to produce your own. However, some other people might not. And so since I already had the equipment and the knowledge, I was able to lend my services to them. You know, and they pay me. They pay me. Not as much probably as like, you know, somebody else, but I'm still learning.
I feel like we're in the podcast world. There's no standard. So it's like, what can you afford?
Right. Yeah. It's less than what you would be charged booking like a professional studio. So I just figure like, what is an hour of my time worth? And we'll just call it that. So in doing that, I had a couple people that were really interested as long as, you know, I could record them. And I have 3 different other shows that I produce. So
wow.
Keeping It Cool with Killa, with 88 Killa, the In the Spotlight with Desi 5, which is actually premiering today on Deep Ellum Radio, and then we're also putting that on a podcast platform. And we record it live at Pekin every first and third Sunday, which is really great because we basically record like 3 to 4 episodes in one sitting. And that way,
that's cool.
we have enough content where we don't have to worry about like if something happens that we can't put something out.
Desi's wild. That should be a good one.
Yeah, he is. And then my friend Erica Stevens, who's an art teacher and very much in the, art culture, she has one that, we're having some issues keeping it consistent because, sometimes you can't really control your creativity, especially when you're trying to put together something that's a little bit more, it takes a lot more thought into it. But she has one called You'll Think of Something, where she comes up with an idea to talk about kind of on a philosophical level. And then she puts music to it. And then in also her talking, she'll give you art that might be inspired by this topic or literature or something like that.
Okay.
So it's a very cultured thing that she does.
And sounds very complicated to put together.
Yeah, she just has to, and she's also, a college teacher, college professor, sorry. And, again, we all have stuff going on in life, and I'm sure, you've had those moments where it's hard to feel creative. I've had writer's block where I haven't written for years, and then one day it just starts coming again, so it's, it's not always something that you can just turn on like a faucet. Sometimes you have to like kind of let it build a little bit. And that's what I tell people in this whole podcast thing too. I know we all want, consistency is key, but sometimes you just don't have it in you. And if you don't have it in you, like, it's better not to put out something that you're not proud of,
sure.
Than to, go ahead and just take the break. I've recorded an episode like last week where my brain was fried and I just had so much going on. It was just like a hellacious 2 weeks, just nonstop busy, lots of meetings, lots of personalities I had to deal with, deadlines. I was burnt out. And, but I had scheduled an episode, and the guest had a topic that they wanted to talk about. And I guess I kind of relied on the fact that maybe they would have like, an outline, some questions, and only to find out that, that's not what they do. They had the idea, but I guess they didn't really expand on it themselves. And I didn't check to make sure, and usually I have like all these questions, like I'm prepared. And this time I definitely was not prepared. And I just felt like we could do something better. So I ended up hitting him up afterwards. I'm like, how would you feel about us redoing that? Here's some stuff that like I pulled, ChatGPT is a game changer. Like, if you're having any kind of creative blocks, like learning how to use that, definitely. And even if you don't like go, I wouldn't tell people to like go with exactly what ChatGPT tells you, but it can inspire thought. And so I pulled some stuff on the topic that the ChatGPT gave me, and gave him like a Google Doc that we could like discuss, and then that way we had a little bit more substance.
Sure.
And because like we talked about the topic here and there, but like,
so you're on the podcast. It's you have like a guest, and it's a sex topic. Is that the vibe? Right.
So it's dating, sex, love, and relationships, and then everything that goes with that. Because when you talk about human sexuality, it's multifaceted. You have gender identity, sexual orientation. You have like a lot of psychology type stuff that goes into relationships. So it's just a really fascinating topic. And the way that I kind of got into that was, I'm fairly successful in most facets of my life, except at one point I was not successful in love. And it was just something that, I wanted to be better at. So I started reading and kind of studying just different aspects of, relationships and how to, actually have a successful one. And it really fascinated me. And it kind of like music, just really caught my attention. And I just became a student in all of the things around it. So, you have like attachment theory, obviously, how your parents raised you and the relationship you have with them is a big thing for how you also have relationships with others. And so in improving myself, I thought, this is something that I think would help a lot of people. And so in my journey, of learning, maybe I can share my journey and what I learned. And it became a blog, and it became a radio show, and then now a podcast. So,
Cool.
And it's been going on. I think the Smitten Kitten was born in 2019. And Sally Rohde actually came up with the name. I had the idea, and I was like, I want it because, a lot of times when I talk about, the female genitalia, I call it the kitty, just to be, and I'm thinking some kind of PC way that we could talk about something like that. And so I was like, it would be really kind of cool if we could have the word kitty or kitten or something, to allude to, that. And she came up with the name and let me do the radio show. Her and John supported me on doing it on the Southside Pirate. And then in doing that, I also started a blog where I would write about it too. And so that's kind of how that was born. And I've learned a whole lot, and I'm happy to say that here it is 2023, and I've been in a successful relationship for the past year and a half. And really that's due to my study and research, because I really went inward and, learned from a lot of professionals that know a lot more about, behavior and psychology and all that kind of stuff than I do. And, I've also been in therapy for a year now, pretty steady. And so, yeah, it's helped me a lot in finding, success and love. And I think that having a partner, or at least being successful in love or okay with where you're at in romance, is a big part of the human experience. And so I think it's an important subject that anybody can relate to. So that's kind of why I decided to go down that path.
Cool. All right. Well, you can check that podcast out on Deep Ellum Radio and podcast platforms, and then all the other ones we talked about. We're going to put links.
Yeah.
At the end.
And you can go to calliedee.com, CALLIEDEE.com, and all my stuff is on there.
Okay. Perfect. I'd like to thank Callie Dee for joining me today. You can look for all her stuff in the links.
Theme song Unstoppable by Salim Nirala.
You can hear the Dallas Famous podcast every week, Sunday 1 p.m. on Deep Ellum Radio, then again on Tuesday at 1 p.m. And then a couple weeks later, we put them on all the podcast platforms. So check it out. Glad you're here. We'll see you next time.